Welcome to the Prescott Lab Podcast, not just theory, practical science for everyone. I'm Dr. Jonathan Prescott, a physician and integrative medicine researcher at the Ravenshade Institute for Human Health. And if you're a man over 60, maybe you're in your quiet kitchen with the morning light streaming in, sipping that fizzy little drink of baking soda and apple cider vinegar. I want to ask you something. What if that healthy ritual you've been trusting is quietly draining the very strength you're trying to protect? Today, we're peeling back the truth. And it's not all bad news because, believe it or not, that same mixture, if used wisely, could become one of the most powerful tools in your comeback. But before we dive deep, let me ask you for one small favor, not for me, but for you and for the next man who stumbles across this video late at night, looking for answers like you once did. Hit that like button. Why? Because the men who like this podcast, well, let's just say their luck tends to turn, their blood pressure drops, their mornings feel lighter, and sometimes, just sometimes, their wives start smiling again for no reason at all. Drop a comment too, even just a one, if you're still in the game and not giving up. Because if you do, may your joints loosen, your energy return, and your next lab test surprise your doctor. All right, let's get to the truth most men never hear. Because if you're taking that drink every morning without knowing the 5 hidden risks and 5 powerful benefits, you could be gambling with your circulation, your prostate, and your performance, and not even know it. Well, let's begin. Harmful 1, overalkalizing kills nitric oxide. Let me tell you about a man named Russell. He was 66, retired train conductor. Still walked like he had a whistle in his hand and a schedule to keep. But when he sat in my office, he didn't waste time. "Doc, I wake up flat, no drive, no response. It's like my body forgot how to show up." Russell wasn't out of shape. He walked daily, ate clean, and swapped coffee for a morning glass of baking soda and apple cider vinegar. Something he saw online, said it would help with heartburn and digestion. Seemed harmless. Sound familiar. What he didn't realize, what most men don't, is that after 60, your body isn't playing by the old rules anymore. When you push your system too far toward alkalinity, you're not just adjusting acid. You're disrupting nitric oxide, the very chemical that controls your ability to perform. Nitric oxide is what signals your blood vessels to open wide and allow flow. Without it, no matter how healthy your heart or how strong your testosterone, the signal gets blocked. And nitric oxide, it's fragile. It needs a slightly acidic pH to thrive. You tip too far into alkaline, especially by flooding your body with baking soda, you choke that signal out. Now mix in vinegar, and that fizzy morning cocktail doesn't just neutralize acid, it cancels both sides. It weakens digestion, dampens nitric oxide, and your performance slips without you even noticing until one day you do. That's what happened to Russell. And like most men, he blamed everything but the real cause: age, stress, even his relationship. But it was his morning drink quietly pulling the plug. When we cut it back and supported nitric oxide the right way, food, movement, smart breathing, his mornings returned. First flickers, then flame. And he said something I'll never forget. "Doc, it's like someone turned the lights back on." So if you've been waking up feeling flat, don't just accept it, don't blame your age, look at your chemistry. Because sometimes the habit that feels clean and simple is the one quietly stealing your fire. Let's talk next about your blood pressure and why that little teaspoon of powder might be hitting harder than you think. Harmful number 2, sodium spike raises blood pressure. A few winters ago, I met a man named Ernest. He was 72, retired firefighter, still had that steel in his voice. The kind of man who never missed a morning walk, cut salt from his meals, read every food label like scripture. But he came in with a puzzled look and said, "Doc, I've done everything right, so why the hell is my blood pressure climbing again?" We sat down and walked through his routine. Low sodium diet, no processed snacks, daily movement, everything checked out until he mentioned his morning ritual. 1 tablespoon of apple cider vinegar, half a teaspoon of baking soda, little warm water. Been doing it every day, feels good. That's when I knew. See, most men think of baking soda as harmless, like it's just a pantry item with magical healing properties. But what they don't realize is that baking soda is sodium bicarbonate. And that innocent-looking half teaspoon, it holds up to 1,000 mg of sodium. That's a quarter of your daily limit in one gulp. Now think about this. Arteries after 60 aren't what they used to be. They're stiffer, tighter, more reactive. When you spike your system with a sudden sodium load, even hidden, flavorless sodium, your blood volume expands, your heart works harder, and the pressure climbs. Not tomorrow, not next week, but quietly every day. That's what happened to Ernest. He'd cut the salt from his plate only to swallow it back through his so-called health drink. And it was hitting him where it hurt his heart. Once we removed the baking soda, his numbers began to shift. 2 weeks in, he called me. "Doc," he said, "I didn't change anything else. But I'm sleeping deeper, breathing easier, and I feel like my chest isn't working overtime anymore." And that's the part that gets me. Most men will never know. They'll cut fried food, skip the salt shaker, take their meds faithfully, while quietly undoing it all with one misunderstood drink. So if your blood pressure's creeping up for no clear reason, don't just look at your dinner plate. Look at your morning glass. Because even the cleanest routine can hide the very thing that's holding your heart hostage. Now let's talk about digestion, and why this same mixture could be starving your manhood of the minerals it needs to function. Harmful number 3, poor digestion, lost nutrients. A few years back, I sat across from a man named Leonard. He was 69, retired architect, detail-oriented, thoughtful, always had a leather-bound notebook with questions. That day, though, he looked tired. "Doc," he said, "I've been doing everything right. Eating clean, cut alcohol, even started on supplements, but my energy's still low. Libido's gone, brain's foggy." We ran his labs, testosterone. Borderline low, zinc and magnesium, barely scraping by. But his diet was solid, whole foods, plenty of protein. It didn't add up. So I asked him one simple question: "You taking baking soda or vinegar in the mornings?" He blinked. "Yeah, every day, thought it helped with digestion." That's when the puzzle snapped into place. Most men don't know this, but after 60, stomach acid naturally declines. It's part of aging, not a disease, not a failure, just reality. But here's the catch. You need that acid to unlock key nutrients. Zinc, magnesium, iron, protein, the building blocks of male vitality, all require proper stomach acid to be absorbed. When you flood your gut with baking soda every morning, especially on an empty stomach, you neutralize that acid. And when you mix it with vinegar, the fizz might feel satisfying, but that chemical reaction cancels both sides. What's left is a weak digestive fire, unable to do its job. Leonard, like many men, was eating the right foods but digesting none of it. It was like loading gold into a safe without the key. Once we cut back the baking soda, spaced out the vinegar, and gave his stomach a chance to recover, something shifted. He came back 3 weeks later and said, "Doc, I didn't just get my energy back. I got my appetite back for food for life." So if you've been loading up on supplements, eating well, but still feel like your body isn't responding, it may not be what you're eating. It may be what you're not absorbing. Because no matter how clean your plate looks, if your digestion's off, your manhood's running on empty. Now let's head a little lower to the pelvis. Because what this mixture does there, it's more mechanical than chemical, but just as real. Harmful number 4, pelvic pressure, prostate strain. There's something most men won't say out loud, but they feel it. That pressure right below the belly. That frustrating urge at 2 a.m. that sends them stumbling to the bathroom only to feel like they didn't quite finish. And if that sounds familiar, you're not alone. Let me tell you about Gerald. He was 74, a retired baseball coach, big voice, big presence, the kind of guy who still called everyone kid. Oh, but that day he wasn't smiling. He lined in and said, "Doc, I feel this weird pressure down low, peeing 3-4 times a night. And when I do, I feel incomplete, like my body's stuck in second gear." Now sure, some of that could be age, Prostate growth, that's normal, but something didn't quite fit. So I asked the usual, changed anything in your routine lately? And there it was again, the drink. Baking soda, apple cider vinegar every morning helps with bloating. But here's what most men don't realize. When you combine baking soda and vinegar, you create carbon dioxide gas. That fizz, that's not just chemistry. It's pressure, and when you swallow that reaction, especially too quickly or too close to meals, you're filling your gut with air, not energy. Now think about the male anatomy for a moment. The bladder, the prostate, the pelvic floor muscles, all packed tightly in one small space. So when trapped gas builds in that lower abdomen, it doesn't just make you burp. It pushes down, adds mechanical strain, and if your prostate's already a little enlarged, that pressure makes everything worse. Urgency, weak flow, that nagging sense of not being empty. It's not always about hormones, sometimes it's just physics. Gerald didn't need more pills, he needed less pressure. We backed off the mixture, changed the timing, and gave his gut more time to reset. A few weeks later, he came back and said, "Doc, I slept 6 hours straight for the first time in months. It's like someone let the air out of a balloon. So let me ask you, have you been waking up more at night, feeling off down there? If yes, drop a comment, even just say me." You'd be surprised how many men nod quietly but never speak up until someone else does first. And what we're about to cover next, it might be the quietest danger of them all. Because sometimes the very thing you're drinking to ease the burn is silently feeding the fire. Harmful number 5, acid rebound, silent inflammation. Not long ago, a man named Stanley walked into my office. He was 70, retired postman, always punctual. Even his health checkups ran on a schedule. But this time something was off. "Doc," he said, "I started that vinegar and baking soda drink for heartburn. At first it worked, but now the burn's back worse, and I'm tired all the time." That's when I knew we weren't just dealing with reflux. We were dealing with something deeper, acid rebound. Here's how it works. You drink baking soda, your stomach acid gets neutralized. Relief comes fast and short-lived. But your body doesn't like being thrown off balance. So what does it do? It fights back. It overproduces acid to compensate. And now, instead of calming your gut, you've trained it to be even more aggressive. That's bad enough. But in men over 60, that battle doesn't stay in the stomach, it seeps outward. Low-grade inflammation begins to spread, you feel stiff after meals, your joints ache more. You lose mental clarity, that fog creeping in where sharpness used to live. And worse, inflammation starts interfering with your hormones and blood vessels, the very systems that keep your manhood alive. Stanley thought he had a stomach issue. What he really had was a chemistry war playing out across his whole body. We stopped the daily fizz, supported his gut naturally, smarter meal timing, more gentle acid support. And within 3 weeks, he said something I hear a lot from men in his shoes. "Doc, I feel clearer. It's like the background noise went quiet." So here's the truth. If you've been chasing relief from acid reflux but finding yourself more inflamed, more tired, more foggy, look at the pattern. The drink that seems to help might be causing your body to fight harder than it should. And if you're thinking, "But wait, I thought this mix was supposed to be healthy," you're not wrong. Because when used the right way, the smart way, it can help. In fact, next we're going to flip the page and talk about the 5 surprising benefits that only show up when this drink is used with precision and respect. Let's start with the one that matters most to many men, your testosterone. Benefit number 1, supports testosterone via liver. Let me introduce you to Bruce. He was 66, retired CPA, steady hands, sharp mind, lived by numbers, systems, and spreadsheets. But that day, he looked up from his notebook and said something I didn't expect. "Doc, I'm not crashing, I'm just fading. My labs are fine, but I feel flat. Less fire, less recovery, less me." His testosterone levels weren't terrible, but they weren't working either. That's when I asked, "How's your liver doing?" He blinked. "My liver, what's that got to do with testosterone?" Here's the thing of everything. See, testosterone isn't just made in the testicles. It's also processed, activated, and balanced in the liver. After 60, the liver slows down, less bile production, more toxin buildup, sluggish hormone metabolism. Which means even if your testosterone is technically normal, it might be stuck in the wrong form. Inactive, unused, kind of like having a bank account you can't access. Now here's where it gets interesting. Apple cider vinegar, in the right dose and timing, gently stimulates bile flow. That's your liver's way of processing fats, cholesterol, and excess estrogen. Baking soda, when used sparingly and not with food, reduces digestive inflammation, freeing the liver from constant firefighting mode. When Bruce switched from daily use to 3 times a week, diluted, mid-morning, and far from meals, something shifted. His next labs showed the same total testosterone. But his free testosterone, the kind your body can actually use, had improved. Doc, he told me, I didn't take more, I just started using what I had. And that's the key. Most men think they need more testosterone. But often what they really need is a clearer pathway, and the liver is the gatekeeper. So if you've been chasing energy, drive, and recovery, but feel like you're always half a step behind, don't skip over the liver. And don't underestimate the power of this drink when used the right way. Because next up, we're talking about something most men never connect to the bedroom: blood sugar, and how balancing it might be the best thing you ever do for your performance. Benefit number 2: lowers blood sugar, boosts erections. A man named Clyde came to see me not long ago. He was 68, retired engineer, methodical to the core, logged every meal. Walked the same 3-mile loop every morning. But this time he looked me in the eye and said quietly, "Doc, I'm doing everything right, but I'm still failing where it counts. I feel embarrassed, like my body's betraying me." We ran the tests. His fasting blood sugar, normal, but his post-meal spikes, that 2-hour window after eating, were sky high. And that's what most men miss. See, erectile problems after 60 aren't just about testosterone. They're about circulation. And nothing wrecks blood flow faster than unstable blood sugar. Here's the biology. Every time your glucose spikes, it damages the inner lining of your blood vessels, especially the smallest, most sensitive ones. And the arteries that supply the penis. They're some of the smallest in the male body. So even if your heart's strong, if those microvessels get stiff, inflamed, and narrow, the blood can't reach where it needs to go. You might still feel desire. You might even have testosterone to back it up. But there's no delivery system. That's where this drink, used wisely, comes in. Apple cider vinegar has been shown to lower post-meal glucose by slowing down carbohydrate digestion and improving insulin sensitivity. Baking soda in small amounts can reduce low-grade acid stress tied to blood sugar dysregulation, easing inflammation and helping balance the system. Clyde didn't change his diet. He simply started sipping a diluted mix, 1 tablespoon of vinegar, a pinch of baking soda in water before his 2 largest meals. Within 3 weeks, his spikes dropped, and more importantly, his confidence started to return. Quietly, steadily. "Doc," he said, "I thought I had a bedroom problem. Turns out I had a sugar problem with a disguise. And I want to ask you, does that ring a bell? If you've been tracking testosterone, blaming stress, trying pills that don't feel quite right, but haven't looked at your blood sugar, it's time, because sometimes the answer isn't more, it's balance." And when your blood sugar is finally under control, something else happens, something physical, literal warmth returns to the lower body. Let's talk about that next. Benefit number 3: warms pelvis, improves flow. Let me ask you something and answer it honestly, even if just to yourself. When was the last time you woke up feeling warmth down there, not just the urge to pee? I mean that quiet, steady presence, the sense that blood is moving, that your body is still alive where it matters most. If it's been a while, you're not alone. I remember a man named Wayne. He was 71, retired steelworker, hands like stone, but voice soft as a Sunday sermon. He came in one afternoon and said, "Doc, I don't know how else to put this, but I just feel cold down there. Like everything's gone quiet." It wasn't the first time I'd heard it, and it wouldn't be the last. As we age, blood flow to the pelvis slows, vessels stiffen, nitric oxide fades, muscles tighten. And slowly, that warmth, that quiet sign of vitality disappears. But here's the thing, it's not gone, it's just sleeping. Apple cider vinegar, used properly, helps boost nitric oxide, the molecule that tells blood vessels to open up. Baking soda in small, spaced-out doses helps reduce inflammation that silently chokes off circulation. I told Wayne, don't take it daily. Tried it 2 or 3 times a week mid-morning, then take a short walk. Nothing fancy. He nodded, tried it. A week later, he came back and said, "Doc, I felt something I hadn't felt in months, like the engine turned over again." Now I'd like to hear from you. Have you felt that same quiet cold? That loss of presence? If so, say something in the comments, even a simple yes. You never know who's reading and thinking. That's exactly what I've been feeling too. This is how it starts, not with a pill or a miracle, but with movement. Movement brings warmth. Warmth brings sensation. And when sensation returns, so does confidence. Next, we'll talk about how this same approach may loosen something else you've probably been blaming on age. Your joints, your lower back, and that deep, frustrating stiffness that keeps you from moving like you used to. Let's keep going. Benefit 4: loosens joints and lower back. I remember Marvin like it was yesterday. He was 69, retired electrician, spent decades crawling under floorboards and stretching over beams. Built tough, never complained. But that day, he sat down slowly, rubbed his lower back, and said, "Doc, it's like my hips and spine are rusting from the inside out. I stretch, I walk, I even tried turmeric pills, but it's always tight, always stiff." Now here's what most men don't realize. Stiffness, especially in the hips, lower back, and knees, isn't always about aging joints. Sometimes it's internal pressure, acid buildup, inflammation, metabolic waste that your body just isn't clearing like it used to. Marvin's blood work told the story: elevated uric acid, borderline blood sugar, inflammatory markers creeping up. His joints weren't worn out. They were overwhelmed. That's where the right use of this drink came in. Apple cider vinegar, when diluted, helps support liver and kidney function, two of the body's main detox pathways. Baking soda in careful doses can buffer excess acid and reduce stiffness in connective tissues. We changed his timing. No more chugging it after meals. 3 times a week mid-morning with water and walking. That's it. 2 weeks later, Marvin walked in with a different posture. He said, "Doc, I'm not moving like a 30-year-old, but I'm not wincing every time I tie my shoes anymore. And for the first time in a long time, I'm not just managing pain, I feel like I'm coming back." That moment stuck with me. Because when a man loses movement, he loses something deeper: his ease, his dignity, his independence. But when the body starts to loosen, even just a little, everything else begins to shift with it. So if your joints feel like they're grinding, if getting up in the morning feels like climbing out of a steel box, don't just blame age. Look at what's building up and what your body is trying to clear. Because relief isn't always about force. Sometimes it's about removing what doesn't belong and letting the body do what it was made to do. Now let's talk about something that goes beyond joints and hormones. Something that might just change the way you show up for yourself every single day. Benefit number 5: builds awareness and ritual. There was a man named Alan. He was 73, retired literature professor, thoughtful, quiet, a man who used to love words, but lately had grown distant from his own body. He sat across from me and said something I'll never forget. "Doc, I don't feel sick, I just feel disconnected, like I'm here but I'm not really in here." And I knew exactly what he meant. Because somewhere along the way, between the aches and pills and checkups, many men stop hearing themselves. They lose that daily dialogue with their own body. They don't know what feels good anymore. They just know what hurts. They stop listening. And then they stop leading. That's why I sometimes recommend rituals, not routines, not obligations. Rituals, small intentional acts that say, I still care, I still choose to show up. For Alan, mixing a glass of warm water, vinegar, and a pinch of baking soda 2 or 3 mornings a week became more than a drink. It became a moment, a pause, a reconnection. And over time, he began to feel the shifts. Not just in digestion or sleep, but in presence. He started noticing how food felt in his gut. He began stretching more. He took deeper breaths. He started moving with rhythm again. And he told me, Doc, I feel like I've returned to my own body. So let me ask you, have you been going through the motions lately? Taking pills, checking boxes, surviving, but not really living. This isn't about vinegar or baking soda. It's about paying attention. It's about turning autopilot off. It's about claiming your space again. If you felt like Alan, adrift, dulled, half-present, let this be your sign you can come back. One small act, one glass, one breath at a time. And now that we've walked through the 5 hidden dangers and the 5 true benefits, it's time for the most important part of this conversation: how to use this wisely, safely, and in a way that truly serves your body, not fights it. Let's close it out together. Closing, how to use it safely after 60. After 30 years of working with men in their 60s, 70s, and beyond, I've learned this. It's not the miracle cure that changes your life. It's the small habit done with intention. The one you stick with, the one you pay attention to, and most of all, the one you listen to your body through. This drink, a simple mix of baking soda and apple cider vinegar, is neither a poison nor a cure. It's a tool. And like any tool, it depends on how you use it. So here's what I recommend: don't take it every day. Don't take it on an empty stomach. Don't chase the fizz like it's some magic fix. Instead, start small. Try it 2 or 3 times a week. Mix 1 tablespoon of raw, unfiltered apple cider vinegar with 1/4 teaspoon of baking soda in a cup of warm water. Let it fizz. Let it settle. Then sip slowly. Mid-morning is ideal, not near meals, not near meds. And most importantly, listen. Does it leave you lighter, sharper, or heavier, foggy? Your body will tell you. You just have to pay attention. Because in the end, it's not about a drink. It's about ownership. And you, my friend, still have time, still have power. Even now, especially now, your body is waiting for you to lead it again. So if this video helped open your eyes, give it a like, not for me, but for the man who'll stumble across it at 2 a.m., wondering why he feels flat and forgotten. Leave a comment, even if just a word. Your voice might be the one that makes another man feel seen. And if you haven't yet, hit subscribe, because this channel exists for you, for men who are done drifting. For men who are ready to reclaim strength, clarity, and confidence, one decision at a time. And if you've ever felt like it's too late, let me be the first to tell you it's not even close. Stay strong, stay sharp. And I'll see you in the next one.